Well, it doesn't seem to come from the top that everybody's following Fauci. It seems that the medical community has embraced Fauci, and that the line is that this is the perfect guy for the position. Trump is trusting Fauci. But you are the anti-Fauci. You're basically saying that virtually everything that Fauci is saying is wrong. So I guess I'd like to kind of start there. First of all, do you have any relationship with Fauci? Did you know each other on a personal level?
No, I never met the guy. Never met him.
And what would he say about your credentials? Would he acknowledge that, yes, someone in Dr. Shiva's position
the issue is, why are we... Let's talk about his credentials. What are Fauci's credentials?
Tell us.
He couldn't even get into MIT. He had to go to Cornell. Cornell's a nice school. He couldn't get into MIT. I'm sorry. Okay, I have 4 degrees from MIT. So,
okay, why is Fauci in the position that he's in?
Because, that's it. Now you're talking a good question. Why is the mainstream media have so much influence? Why is Fauci where he is? Now we're talking to a good question. Let's talk about that. And why is no one questions this guy? How long has this guy been here, Jim? He's been there since Reagan.
Including Trump, by the way. So it's everybody, including Trump, is trusting this guy right now.
Yeah, and that's okay. Look, there was a time when 97% of the people thought that the sun went around the earth, right? That did take place, right? And one guy had all the data which said that's not true. Well, the fact is the sun doesn't go around the earth goes around the sun. There are facts. The fact is that the immune system, we're all a bunch of walking bucket of germs, 380 trillion viruses inside of us, as I keep saying, 60 trillion bacteria. We're a germ factory. Microbes are our friends. To think that, let me just turn this off, to think that germs and viruses and microbes are not part of our ecosystem is basically a fake, a fear-mongering scientific understanding of everything we know about science. The microbes, everything we're talking about, is a part of who we are, and they will always be a part of who we are. We're never going to eliminate viruses. We're not going to eliminate any of these viruses. They're going to be here for a long time, so I hope that's clear. So the first thing we need to step back is realize that we've been imbued with Hollywood, with movies like Pandemic, all these movies, that viruses are some boogie monster. It's like sort of the last boogie monster left, okay? And that these viruses somehow come and they attack our bodies and they eat away our eyeballs, or they eat away our liver, or they eat away our heart, right? Remember when Ebola was coming out? What was the news? Oh my God, the guy's bleeding inside and out. You almost thought that this virus was getting in and eating away your body, right? I'm sure that's what 99% of the numbskulls on mainstream media thought, because these people, again, don't know science. They're basically taught in the mainstream media to write something, their editors scratch it out, and they're taught to be good little lapdogs, and then their publishers own it. But the bottom line is, that's not what it is. The truth is, the scientific truth is, that it's an overreactive immune system, a dysfunctional and weakened immune system that overreacts and attacks parts of your own body in response to exogenous pathogens coming in, which are occurring at every moment in time. In every millisecond, we're being, right? So in the normal case, the immune system gets it, and you don't even think about it. You have proper nutrients, maybe you get a little sniffle. Sometimes, you scratch your eyes, right? These are all little immune processes taking place. In the advanced dysfunctional state, your immune system attacks and eats itself, starts eating itself, and this is a very complex system. And I'm one of the leaders in this. This is why the National Science Foundation had me come and do the prestige lecture on it. So people want to know about the immune system. Let's invite Mr. Fauci and let's have me. And let all the world, let him bring all of his scientists. Let him bring every scientist on the NIH, and I'll take them all on to talk about what's going on. That's how confident I am in my expertise. Just like if you were a senior level mechanic who knew something, and you had a bunch of little children running around, you would say, yeah, bring it on. Okay? Because I know what I'm talking about. This would be like telling a master, who's a karate master, that you don't know what you're talking about. And that's what we have. We have little scoundrel mainstream media running around who don't know science, who frankly can't even solve a math problem, most of them, telling a guy of my level of credentials who's busted his butt to get here that they try to brand me as something. So,
sorry, what confuses me is it's not just about Fauci and U.S. media. This is around the globe. Every country around the globe seems to have reacted in the same way to this, which is with this essential total shutdown.
Right.
So Shivas anywhere that are being listened to?
Yeah, there are. If you look at how many people have signed up our petition, and I hope you've looked at it, nearly 70,000 people have, nearly 3,000 medical doctors, scientists all over the world. It's a lot of people.
But none of these governments are listening.
Well, what you have to understand is who is the government these days? Who runs these governments? We have seen a consolidation of power as never before. Technology helps. Look, when the printing press came, you remember the printing press? People talk about the Gutenberg printing press. This is quite an interesting thing to understand the history of technology. You know, a guy like David Noble talks about this. When the printing press came, many people thought, oh my God, the printing press is here. We'll all be able to print, right? All of us will be the press, right? We'll all have the ability to have more freedom of discourse and discussion, etc. That was a notion of when a new technology like the printing press came. What actually happened over time, what should have been a technology for freedom, got consolidated to 4 major publishing houses, right? 4 major publishing houses owned all the newspapers, they owned the book publishing companies. So if you're a young writer, you have to get an agent, you need a Harvey Weinstein, okay? You have to kiss up to him, and then you get to be a star. So we consolidated power. Well, when the internet came, I wrote an interesting book, I don't have it here, called Arts and the Internet, The Guide to the Revolution. I was like, wow, you know, I do a lot of artwork, a lot of my friends are artists, and I said, wow, the internet will eliminate gatekeepers. We can all go direct. We were all building our own little web pages. Well, what actually happened? Well, you had 5 major people control the internet right now. You have the Zuckerbergs, you have the Googles, and you have the 3 major telco companies. So whenever technology comes, we think there's going to be freedom, but as long as there's this global elite, they consolidate power. So as time has gone on, it's easier to consolidate power, Jim. It's easier. Before you had many little kingdoms, right? People can travel around, right? But now we can travel around at the speed of light, through the internet, through all sorts of vehicles. So the elite have also become more and more consolidated. And the people no longer are nationalist people. Warren Buffett doesn't give a damn about the United States. He invests everywhere. The Clintons and the Gates don't give a damn about you, the American worker. They invest everywhere. They'll invest anywhere. So you've seen the consolidation of power at an enormous, particularly in the last 20 years. You can go look at the number of billionaires and probably trillionaires that have been generated. You have enormous consolidation of power. So you should not be that surprised. In fact, I find it that you're surprised that it's quite interesting that what we're seeing here, this was well planned, well executed consolidation of power. And look, the guy that's behind this, it's interesting, is Bill Gates, who, by the way, didn't write DOS, didn't invent DOS, bought it from someone else and flipped it, but he does understand software to the extent, whenever I create software, you go through 3 phases of release. Alpha phase, where you do an initial test. Beta phase, you get more people to use it, and then gold, where you release it. So you go through testing. You see how people react. Do they like your product or not? Well, the event 2001, 201, whatever that, you could argue that was like an alpha release, right? Testing with people's psychology. Is this a beta release or a gold release? I don't know, but I can tell you the dynamics of this is a global opportunity to enforce, as I put in my first tweet, and that tweet will probably end up as a very, very important historic tweet, because it said that as a MIT PhD in biological engineering, what we're witnessing right now is one of the biggest fear-mongering hoaxes that will destroy economies, to manipulate economies, to suppress dissent, and to impose mandated medicine. That's what this is about. Now, the mainstream media they know exactly what I'm talking about, because they're part of it. They're part of that collusion, as though vaccines have no safety issues. Well, they do. In fact, there's no safety standards done on vaccines, because they're a biologic. They don't even have to go through pharmaceutical testing. Now, most of the fools in mainstream media don't even know this, because they don't even know the regulatory framework of the FDA. So you have ignorance, and you have people being taken advantage of, and that's what you have. But it comes down to a fundamental ignorance of science. And that's what Fauci is banking on. Trump was able to make it through the Russian collusion, okay? Because he could he could do his thing. He could do his thing with impeachment. But this thing, he's surrounded by people where he doesn't have the tool chest, right? He doesn't have the chops. He has some gut instincts on this, okay? He knows something doesn't smell right. But this isn't a different playing field. And that's why, you know, a guy like me, that's why all these things are going so viral. This is why you called me. This is why I'm getting 5,000, 6,000 messages. This is why I'm getting almost 400 interview requests. Because people want answers and they know that things are not adding up.
Well, let's be very clear, please, about what you're asserting regarding this virus. Are you suggesting that this was made up, that this was created in order to create an excuse for the deep state to take over?
Well, what I'm arguing is, and it's not even an argument, let's just look at the facts. Let's just do a simple data analysis. Let's apply some math, which people have forgotten in this country because of this whole thing that everything is a right answer. Let's just apply some simple math. When H1N1 took place, how many million people got it? About 62 million people, if I know, right? 17% of the U.S. population. How many people died from it? About 60,000 people, am I right? Okay. Was there a shutdown called?
That's worldwide, right?
No, in the United States.
U.S.?
Yeah, much more worldwide. How many people in the United States, how many shutdowns were called here? Did we call a global pandemic? Did we shut down the United States economy? Did we?
Not at all, that I can recall.
So you can just put those numbers here and just look at them as a scientist. Okay, this event took place. It was an infectious disease. It was something that was spreading. It was something that was lethal. So many people died. Now look over here. We have something that has a higher infectivity rate. We don't have anywhere near the number of deaths. And more importantly, right now we're seeing a decline in so-called the flu, the pneumonia, a linear decline, and an increase in so-called COVID infected and people dying, okay? It's almost like one is cannibalizing the other. Again, everyone should go look at the data. The problem is, in this case, we can't even trust the data because they're using polymerase chain reaction experiments, which they're looking for a little piece of a nucleotide. It's like they call them virus hunters. They call them bacterial hunters. They're like trying to find something to pin the crime on somebody. And this has been the history of the scientific, biological, medical establishment for far too long. They've been trying to always pin some disease, including cancer, on retroviruses. Every disease is a virus. AIDS is a virus. Why? Because when you pin it on a virus, you create enough fear. You know, you ever heard of how IBM used to sell? Do you know the IBM selling model, Jim?
No.
Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. FUD. So when IBM went to a customer, they'd say, well, look, we're Big Blue. Are you going to buy from that small guy over there? What about when your computer fails? We're going to be here for you. Is he ever going to be in business? Uncertainty. Can you trust him? Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. It's a selling methodology. Pharma uses FUD. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. In fact, it's taught in business school. All right? So what you're seeing here, and this is not something that's even conspiracy. This is, and if you're frankly stupid if you don't understand this, fear, uncertainty, and doubt is a selling methodology. And pharma is the masters of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Masters of it. Watch every commercial prime time. They follow that formula. And finally, they reach to a beautiful utopia where you've taken this drug and it's healed you. So that is a foundational model of this. So when you look at this virus, you tell me what is fundamentally different about this virus and H1N1 in terms of the catastrophic numbers. And the answer is, this is actually not as worse. Okay? And then, the other thing is, well, this could be a bioweapon, right? This could be a bioweapon. Well, okay. So what are we supposed to do? Get even more scared now? You see, that's almost to add gravitas to a virus. Well, let me tell you that the fundamental issues, our immune system has been around for billions of years. Billions. Just think about that. And that immune system, the evolution it's gone through, has been to create what's called a resilient system. If you again study engineering systems, which biologists don't, you will find one of the core features of systems is resilience. You build a bridge. A bad bridge will fall apart if a wind comes. A good bridge can take a wave, right? It can handle it. Skyscrapers, they don't build them stiff anymore. They build them to take a little, that's called resilience. They can take a hit and get stronger. So our bodies are built to have resilience. Now the people who weaken their bodies, and we can go through the reasons, they have non-resilient systems and they'll crack. And by the way, all these people that are dying, well frankly, many of them are going to die anyway, the way they were living. So let's talk about that. But we don't want to talk about that. We want to assume as though, wow, this virus is killing everyone. No, it isn't. It's killing the people that are elderly as they age. Their immune system is weakened. It's killing those who were smokers. It's killing those people who had very compromised immune systems. And on top of it, idiots like Fauci, the model of social distancing all day long, creates social isolation. We just have a wonderful family friend, okay? My friend calls me and goes, Shiva, my wife has relapsed after 40 years. 40 years she's relapsed into serious depression. 40 years ago she was on Prozac. He goes, I got to put my wife back on it. I go, what's going on? He goes, she can't go out and swim anymore. She's such an extrovert. She can't play mahjong with her friends. Social isolation. The detriment of social isolation destroys the immune system. It creates viral infection. So let's step back, including all of you guys that want to talk. Let's have a real conversation. And let's elevate this conversation beyond the fraudulent, fake science conversation that the mainstream media wants to have. Let's talk about the immune system. Let's talk about real science. Let's start educating people about science, because for far too... Do you know in China, you know who's on billboards in China? Scientists, engineers. We put stupid people on billboards like George Clooney and Lady Gaga and idiots.
So just to be clear, so that the audience knows, because again, you've been blowing up in some conspiracy websites and so on, you're not saying the virus is not real, and you're saying that, yeah, most likely it came out of Wuhan. And
no, I'm not even saying that. I'm not. No, so don't. No, I'm not saying that, Jim. I'm saying, yeah, there's a virus. Okay, there's a virus.
And just to be clear, where do you think it came from? I just want to kind of establish what.
Well, one research says that it came out of Wuhan. There's other people out there who are saying the first 13 out of the 41 don't match. I've heard people say it came out of Fort Detrick. All of that's irrelevant. This is all. This is all.
How do we respond to it? I understand that.
No. This is all nonsense. This is all playing on people's psychology.
But let me stress the biggest hotspot that most people were China. Who knows really what happened in China, because you can't trust anything that China says. But Italy had what appears to have been a serious crisis, and it appeared to be worse than anything we'd seen.
How many people died? Before you go there, you're making up assertions that are not true. I'm sorry to. I just want to level. How many people died of flu over the last 2 years in Italy?
I don't have that.
About 22 to 40,000 people. Do you want to go to an Italian hospital? Friends of mine, when I've worked with at MIT, very nice people. You don't want to end up, Jim, in an Italian hospital. They are totally corrupt. Their level of corruption in Italy is, and it shows up in the healthcare system. So let's just step back and understand context. Let's understand some systems. The healthcare system in Italy is a state-owned socialist top-down model, which is completely devoid of any human interaction and bedside manners. You do not want to end up in an Italian hospital. I repeat that 1,000 times. And 38% of the people who go to Italian hospitals are elderly people who have pre-existing conditions. Some guy comes with a chest pain. By the way, they have 2 codes that the WHO came. One was COVID-19 positive. The other is, well, anything that sounds like COVID. Okay? The number of people that are dying right now in Italian hospitals, go look at last year how many people died from flu.
Well, but they didn't shut down the country at that time. So people would argue that had they not shut down the country, it would have been far, far worse. So if this is
sounds like a great way to protect yourself, right?
Pardon me?
Sounds like a great way to protect yourself, right?
Let me would argue, and this is what I want you to challenge, that if they had not done that, the hospitals would have been overwhelmed. They were overwhelmed as it was, and the only option they had, they felt, was to force people to stay at home. Otherwise, their hospitals would have been overwhelmed.
Okay, so let's look at how many people came to the hospitals last year and how overwhelmed they were there last year. And you'll find out that an order of magnitude of people died over the last 2 years. Just look at the numbers.
Okay, so why was it in the news this year? How come we didn't hear about it last year?
Let's talk about that. What was going on in Italy? What is going on in the Italian political? What was going on let's just sort of step back and look at over the last 6 months. What's been going on globally? Let's go 6 months ago, before we very nicely all put on little, what are those, blinders. What was going on 6 months ago globally throughout the world?
Globalization.
What was going on in France?
Michael's going to help me answer your question.
What was going on in France? I mean, what was going on in France? By the way, I'm going to point.
Oh, you're saying populist movements? Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, yeah. What was going on in France and places like there's massive protests taking place. Everyone seems to have forgotten this. Massive protests on the streets in France. What was going on in?
Not uncommon though.
Huh?
They have France has major labor strikes all the time.
Not like the ones that were going on. Not like, I've been to France, not like the ones that were going on then. The yellow jackets everywhere. What was going on in Hong Kong?
Protesting.
Millions, not millions. What was going on in Wuhan itself in June of 2019?
No idea.
Massive anti-pollution protests by the people of China against their own government. China has been building incinerator plants all over China. Because of the Paris Accords, they can pollute the hell out of their country even more. So there were pollution protests in Wuhan. You know what happens when you protest in China, right? You get thrown away, you get jailed, etc. In China itself, there were massive pollution protests. Massive. 10,000 people in Wuhan. It all disappeared. Venezuela, massive protests. South Africa, massive I can keep going on and on and on. I mean, if you just did a little film, you would see masses, not like 10,000, I'm talking about millions of people taking to the street. Puerto Rico, remember that? Okay.
So this is government's way of being able to quell the people,
well,
put them away in their homes, to tamp down the social unrest.
Well, you have to understand, there's been an anti-establishment movement, and two leaders got elected who were populist leaders in two of the biggest democracies. Where was that? In the United States, Donald Trump, and in India, Narendra Modi. Narendra Modi was the first prime minister to win from a dynasty of the Gandhi family. And the Gandhi family is one of the most corrupt families in India. Modi came bottoms up. So just step back and look at history. Globally, there was a movement of people coming bottoms up for truth and freedom. Less than 6 months ago, all over the world, mass protests. Brexit took just place. So you're talking about events taking place that were against the establishment. And we need to understand that. And if you got to really understand, you can't just look at this little snapshot, oh my God, coronavirus. Step back. Take your lens back, do a little Google zoom out. And what you will see is massive anti-establishment movements taking place throughout the world. And two leaders of the democratic countries who were not supposed to get elected. Modi got elected in a landslide in India. The Gandhi family never thought he was going to win. And Trump also beat the Clinton establishment. That's what occurred. Now, in the context of that, do you think that those people in power would take this lying down? No. They have been wanting to seize power back because they saw either through suffrage, through votes, people were starting to rise up, or they saw through these populist movements that were taking place. And that is how changes always come. So that is not something that's a harbinger for good for those people in power. I'm talking about the global elites. So all that was 6 months. Where's Hong Kong? Where are all those people? What happened to them? Where did all these people go? Did they just disappear? I mean, I'd really like to know. What happened to them?
But these same governments that you're saying that the deep state or whoever fears, they're the same governments that shut everything down. So Boris Johnson in UK shut down his country. Donald Trump in America shut down his country. I don't know what they did in India. I presume that was shut down. So why are these leaders shutting down their own movements?
Right, but do you acknowledge that there were massive movements of dissension taking place globally? I'm not talking about simple, I'm talking about massive. And
well, and look, all times have movements.
No, not like when was the last time Hong Kong went like that? Never. That's not true. When was a Modi ever elected in India? Not true. Since 1947, it's been the Gandhi families. Nehru, then Indira Gandhi, then Rajiv Gandhi, then the wife. I mean, this has been a dynasty.
So Trump is someone who calls out the deep state all the time. How come he's not smart enough to figure out what you're talking about right now, and why is he falling for this?
I just told you. This is a very tough problem because we're talking about science. We're talking about something that perhaps only a guy like me at this moment in history can speak to because of my background and a unique position that life has placed me in. How many people in the scientific establishment are going to talk? I mean, I have friends of mine at MIT who've told me, Shiva, everything you're saying is right, but I'm not going to say anything. Okay? Why? How many people knew before, I think there was that movie called The Big Short, remember that one, where the Wall Street all crashed? People knew what they were doing was...
Thanks for watching up to here. You can see the title of this YouTube video, and you can go there and watch the whole thing. I just wanted to present a little bit of it, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.